Chapter 28 of the Boy Scouts in the Rockies. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Boy Scouts in the Rockies by Herbert Carter. Goodbye to the Rockies, bound for home. "This is Alec Rawson, Sheriff McNulty," said Thad, some little time later, when, in answer to his signal, two figures came promptly into camp. The officer greeted the boy warmly, and what he said caused Alec's cheeks to burn red with delight, as well as his eyes to sparkle, as he turned them filled with gratitude upon Thad. For it seemed to him that the scoutmaster must be little short of a magician, since he could even change enemies into warm friends. Why, even Uncle Artemus, as if he knew enough to get in out of the wet when it rained, came up and wanted to congratulate the boy for having won out and found the mine his father had first set eyes on. But Alec had too many bitter feelings in connection with the artful lawyer, and coolly turned his back on him. Arrangements were soon made whereby the sheriff would go with Thad and Alec that very day to see the mine, and be a witness to the act whereby the son of the first discoverer laid claim to the valuable property. Then he said he would accompany Alec to the city where the legal part of the business must be completed. He also declared that he knew the very capitalist, a man who was the essence of honor and whom he would like to interest in the matter. So Alec expressed a wish to meet him, that some arrangements might be quickly placed before his mother. His one thought seemed to be to get the glorious news to that waiting little woman as soon as possible. She had suffered enough, he declared, and please heaven this would be the end, so far as money could bring relief. On the following morning, then, the sheriff left, with Alec and the guide keeping him company, and old Uncle Artemus tagging on, anxious now to get back to Denver and take up his legal business, since his hopes of ever having a share in the newly discovered silver mine were crushed, wrecked by his own malicious actions towards his brother's family. Had he done what was right in the premises, instead of greedily wanting to grab the whole, as Alec put it, Uncle Artemus might have been the very capitalist needed to develop the mine. But no one had any faith in him any longer. Of course, Thad took his scouts and made a permanent camp there, about where the three prospectors had started to settle down late on that night, when the boys were coming out of the fissure in the rock. How the others did laugh again and again when they heard all about the fright given to Knacker and his companions by the growls which Thad and Alec managed to emit. Of course, the bighorn hunters had come in before that other day was much more than half done, and Smithy was proudly carrying the horns that had belonged to his quarry. He hardly seemed like the same Smithy they had known so long. Why, he was a transformed boy in many things, and even failed to brush off the dust someone pointed out to him on his khaki garments. And when Smithy reached a point that he could ignore such things, there must surely be a great transformation taking place in his makeup. He was brimful of questions now, eager to learn the 1,001 wrinkles of woodcraft, and expressing his determination to accomplish wonderful things before many months had passed. And Thad knew that Smithy would prove a sad disappointment to all those 37 old maid aunts and cousins who had spoiled him in the past, for he had suddenly discovered that he had the red blood of his father running in his veins, and the lure of all outdoors was beginning to take hold of him. Never again would that boy be satisfied to sit at the feet of an old lady and learn how to make fancy work. Oh no, after this the baseball and football fields would claim a goodly share of his attention, for Smithy was bent on making himself manly, a credit to the father whose name he bore, and who he knew had once dearly loved to hunt and fish and spend his vacations in the woods, close to nature, as do all men who are worthy of the name. Before the time limit which Thad and his chums had set for their stay in the haunts of the Rockies had fully expired, Alec and the sheriff, accompanied by Toby Smathers and several gentlemen who looked like financiers, came back. They had no sooner examined the mine than arrangements were immediately made for forming a company to open it. There was even talk about running a railroad spur up the valley from the nearest connection, so that the rich ore might be taken to a smelter and stamping mills, though possibly it would be decided as an easier proposition to bring these things to the mine. And so one fine day the Silver Fox Patrol of Cranford troop of Boy Scouts said good-bye to Alec and several others who had become their friends since arriving in that region, where the massive Rockies reared their snow-capped heads toward the blue skies, far outreaching the clouds at times. Toby Smathers was to go back with them as far as the nearest town on the railroad. Then he expected to return to the mine, having been offered a splendid position by the company. Alec meant to go down and see his mother and sisters presently, when he could keep away no longer, and pour into their lap some of the first proceeds from the now newly discovered but long hidden silver mine. And later on Thad had long letters from the Western boy, which he fully described the happiness that now reigned in his home, and again did that good little mother send her warmest regards to the brave lads who had been so instrumental in gaining this great fortune for the Rawsons, and to whom she must ever feel gratitude of the deepest kind on account of having her son spared to her. Of course we shall expect at some future time to once more make the acquaintance of Thad Brewster and his jolly lot of chums belonging to the Silver Fox Patrol. With the advent of the new patrol and other lads still clamoring for admittance into the troop, Cranford was apt to soon take a front rank as a town where the boys were organized for good. And when so many enterprising lads as Allan, Step-Hen, Giraffe, Bumpus, Bob White, Smithy, Davy Jones, and last but far from least, the efficient assistant scout master himself, Thad Brewster, continued to get together at every available opportunity, winter and summer, bent on having a royal good time, it may be set down as certain that lots of remarkable things are just bound to happen that would make splendid reading. But for the present we have to let Bumpus take his bugle in hand, and in his customary clever way, sound taps. Lights out. End of chapter 28. End of the Boy Scouts in the Rockies by Herbert Carter.